When you look at the balance sheet of many of these airlines, clearly they just do not have the ability at the moment to refund millions of Europeans with the money that has already been spent on flights. Lufthansa, for example, the German national carrier, is losing €1 million a day. That is clearly not sustainable. And I think ultimately, as much as the EU Commission would like to see these rules and regulations stay in place, that ultimately those 12 member states will find that they have got support amongst the wider number of member states. And considering, these are quite important member states like France, the Netherlands and Belgium, it is likely that the EU will have to bow to that pressure. And that ultimately during this crisis, consumers somewhat will have to wait on these vouchers and then see how the airline industry ends up at the end of this crisis. Many would point to the fact, of course, that Europe, has got lots and lots of carriers, and that in the end it may not be sustainable for all of them to stay in business. When you look at the United States, for example, a much bigger market, it really only has 4 or 5 significant players, whereas in Europe we've got dozens.
Darren, if this law is maintained, give us an idea of how it would be enforced.
Well, this is another big obstacle to why current arrangements are likely to change, simply because member states will find it almost, I think, nigh impossible to essentially enforce these laws while airlines find themselves in such economic distress, and why to date, ultimately, millions of Europeans, despite the rules, simply have not had their money returned. I mean, you only have to go on social media or indeed talk to any of your friends to find out that airlines owe them money from many months ago, that's not necessarily within the 7-day rule. But there is concern about this, about whether, as those airlines, as Oliver was suggesting, if they do go bankrupt, do people still get their money? And in addition to that, does that mean that essentially we're bailing out these airlines twice? Because ultimately many of them are now seeking aid from the state, hundreds of millions of euros to try and keep them afloat, while at the same time, if you're an airline passenger, you're not getting your money back. So essentially, some taxpayers are having to bail out airlines, not just once in this crisis, but potentially twice, if they're simply going to be offered a voucher that it's uncertain at this stage will be worth anything in a year's time.